wanted to use this section to talk a little bit about how to deliver lessons to students and the difference between a teacher-led activity and a student-paced activity. I do have the teacher view on one side and the student view on the other. So I haven't launched a lesson yet, so the student gets the wait room error, or not really error, but the waiting room message. When I'm getting ready to start and begin a lesson, first of all, I wanted to point out that any of the presentations that you bring into Smart Learning Suite, like I brought this one in originally from Google Drive, and it didn't have any activities in it until I brought it into Smart Learning Suite. That original Google Drive file is still in my Google Drive, and it's still the same as it was prior to me bringing it into Smart Learning Suite. It does not have any of the activities. Lessons with activities are only going to be viewed within your Smart Learning Suite dashboard. So your original file in Drive was not affected at all. However, once I bring a file in and I add activities, before I launch it for the class the first time, I recommend making a copy of the activity. And you can do that by clicking these three dots and saying make a copy. This will make a copy of the lesson with all of the activities that you've added into it. But when I launch this for a class and a class starts participating and adding information, all of the student information and data is stored within the lesson. So if I wanted to have a clean copy, but for maybe a new class, but I wanted to save all that data that was in here, I don't want to go and start editing my lesson, because once I start editing it, it's going to when I start editing slides, that's when it removes the student data. So we want to just make sure that we always just make a copy before we launch it for students. When I'm ready to launch the lesson for students to see, instead of clicking edit here, I'm going to click start to start the lesson. And as soon as I start the lesson, it will show up on the student screen. And you can notice that, as I move through the pages of the lesson, it's actually moving through on the student screen as well. Now, when we get to let's say, for instance, the student cannot control this. They don't have navigation tools. They can't move to different slides in the presentation. They are completely dependent on what I have on the screen. But let's say we ran out of class time and I wanted them to finish this for homework. Or you can potentially make the entire presentation student-paced. What I can do is just click up here on this icon and it tells me quick glance how many students are enrolled in my lesson, currently 5. It's currently a teacher-paced activity, which means the students can't control it. And I can see how each student is logged in. 4 of the 5 students are logged in as a guest. The other one is Luke is logged in with his Google account. So at any time during the lesson, I can change it from teacher-paced to student. So I could think, okay, so going through the lesson, I just want them to finish these last couple of activities for homework. So I'm going to make it student-paced. The minute it's student-paced, it sends a message to the student, and now they have access to the scroll bars, and they can navigate through the entire presentation. If they needed to finish this activity, they can just click resume, and they can finish drawing and doing the activity. And once they're finished, they can go ahead and just move to the next activity. Now, if a teacher makes something student-paced on the fly, you don't want to end the lesson, because if you end the lesson, it's going to end the lesson for the student. So what I could do is I can close this window and the student will still be able to use this. But if I click up here on end the lesson, it's actually going to really end the lesson and put the student back into their dashboard or their waiting room. So it is important that and every time you launch a lesson, it is going to launch in teacher mode. So it is important, if I have them finish it for homework, that I don't click up here in the menu, I don't choose end lesson. I can go ahead and I can close this window. As long as I don't hit end lesson, it will still be open for the students to finish. Just some other things as you're looking through that screen. So I'm just going to switch this back to teacher-paced for a moment. And I'm just going to go to a couple of slides here so you can see But if I click on this screen, one thing that is nice about this is it does tell you what kind of activity you set up for each page. Because if I'm just in the slide view, it doesn't necessarily show me that. So here it will say this page is a whole class activity. Or if I go to the next page and I click on that, again, whole class activity. Let's get to one that's more individual. So on this one, it will tell me this page is an individual activity on student devices. So if you've kind of forgotten what kind of activity you added on these slides, this little page will tell you that. I just want to draw your attention to the 3-dot menu as well. We talked about the whole ending of a lesson, but you can also edit your lesson on the fly. So you could be in the middle of presenting and I can quick edit my lesson. It does drop the student quickly into the waiting room, but it would allow me to quickly add a new activity if I wanted to. So I could let's say I wanted to add a new page to the presentation. I'll just go back to finish editing and it brings me right back to presentation mode. And now the student will be right back into the lesson. So you can edit on the fly. It will drop them into the wait room briefly and then pull them right back out. When you're completely finished with the lesson and you did not make it student paced, you should end the lesson so that it's not still running in the background. And again, here's where you can also make a copy. You can also access the help feature or any training videos here. The whole share section, we're just going to talk about a little bit in the next section.